Okay, so now you have your Sparklifebinder and your emergency binder, but how do you keep them safe? And where do you store them? These are questions that I hear all the time because, quite frankly, this is some really important and sensitive information. So we need to treat it that way. Here are some ideas for storing your life binder and your emergency binder safely and how to use them. First off, anything I say during this video, use your own common sense, check with your own judgment, check with your own professionals. This is all up to you, so use this advice, with a grain of salt and do what's going to work in your situation. Every situation is different. If yours would not apply correctly, then don't use the idea. So just be smart about it, double check. With storing your Sparklifebinder, there are a few ways that I recommend storing the binder. If you are in a situation where you might not be in a secure location and people that you don't want to have seeing the binder could come across it, or if you're concerned about somebody breaking into the house and finding it, here are some ways to keep this secure. My favorite way, and the way that I recommend the most, is if you have a fireproof safe that's big enough to hold your binder, keep it in there. And I do have some fireproof safes listed on the, I have one listed that would be big enough for most binders, listed on the supplies list. Now that is my absolute favorite, most secure way to keep your binder safe. If you can't do that, choose one of these that would work for your situation. One way that I store the binder is I put it in a place that most people would never think to look. So if somebody were to break into your house, they would not think to look there. For example, behind a bookcase, or maybe under a bed, or in between the mattresses, or in the very back of a closet behind your clothing. You can even do it maybe tucked behind some books on a bookshelf so you can't even see the binder. Those are some options for places that people would not think to look for your Sparklifebinder. Another option is if you feel a little bit more secure and want fast access to it, don't label it your Sparklifebinder, label it something that nobody would ever look at. Something like chemistry notes or quilting patterns. If I saw a binder as a thief in somebody's bookcase named quilting patterns, I'm probably not going to grab it. It's not going to be of interest to me. So that's a way to hide it in plain sight if that's a solution that would work for you. Now, as far as the emergency folder, that one can be a little bit trickier because if you do want to be able to leave it where the paramedics or emergency responders can grab it and know to look for it, if you're in a situation where you think that could be a possibility and you want that availability, then I recommend that you do not complete the ID numbers within the first page, your social security number, driver's license number, passport number. I would not enter that information here. Also, I would not enter any information. I would not keep a photocopy of the IDs. I would not enter the extremely sensitive information, and I may not, depending on your comfort level, I may not even keep my prescription information in there. I would just keep the very basic information, the contact information. I would not even write my birth date in there if it was something where I wanted to be able to leave out in the open. The nice thing is you can just leave instructions in those spaces instead. So if you are not going to fill those out because you want to be able to leave your life binder somewhere visible, in those lines you can just tell them which of your emergency contacts can give them that information if they need it. So for example, under Social Security, you could say, ask family emergency contact, and then whatever their name is. That way they have the access to it if they need it, but most likely they will not need it in order to do what they need to do. They need the medical information and the emergency contact information more than anything. So that's what I would say about making sure that if somebody were to get their hands on this, it would not be the end of the world. So if you're going to keep it very visible, which sometimes we need to, then don't fill those sections out. As far as where to keep this, if you want emergency responders to easily find this, usually I say keep it in the kitchen. And most emergency responders are trained to look in or near the freezer because pretty much every house has a refrigerator, so it's the one consistent place that's easy to find. because we don't have our refrigerator in the garage unless it's a second one, right? So, emergency responders know to look at or near the refrigerator in the freezer, specifically for emergency information in most areas in the United States, if not all areas. Now, if you're outside the United States, there will be some things in the Sparklifebinder that don't apply exactly, and that may not be the case in your area. Find out in your area where their go-to spot is. All right, and then you can keep this within your kitchen and put, what I do is on the freezer in bright red or bright orange, I write emergency medical information can be found, and then you can write in red folder on top of microwave, or red folder next to toaster, something like that, something where you can keep it somewhat visible and they can quickly and easily find it based on your instructions. Another option is to keep it in a tube inside of the freezer if you have one of the emergency tubes. In some areas they have the round cylinders that have usually orange or red tips that people put in the door of their freezer for emergency responders. If you do have something like that, that's another option that you can not only fill out the emergency information that they put in the tube, but also in that tube, make sure that they know to grab this as well. And also, if it's in your kitchen, it's easy for you to grab if you need it as well. So that is a little bit about how to keep your physical emergency binder and your life binder safe. Again, use your common sense. Know your situation. If you're not sure, go for the safest way. I hope that you really enjoy using your life binder. It can be a powerful tool when you use it correctly, and I know that you are going to be amazing with it.